I always like seeing what the freeze frame is going to be. Okay, here I am. I'm a little bit late. Apologize, but I'm here nonetheless. And we are talking about a hot button topic here today. So,
I
one,
am. I'm a little bit late.
got
Apologize.
I got it's just easier for the comments to come up here. Um, So I hope that if you're here live, you will ask me all kinds of questions as we move along. And I hope that if you can join me live, that you will at least join me on the replay and take advantage of what it is that we're going to cover here today. So what are we talking about today? We're actually talking about how to count calories for weight loss without losing your mind. So I always like knowing who's here. So who's here on the live. So just drop into the comments and say, yo, I'm here, say hi. And then I don't feel like I'm just talking to a screen all by myself. I'm actually talking to somebody. And again, if you're here live, opportunity to ask questions. But if you're here on the replay, that's still equally just as valuable because it says that, hey, I'm the kind of person who's invested in my health and in my learning. And it signals to me kind of like, hey, I am here. I am here and I am doing this as well. But also it signifies, it goes a step further as well. It says, hey, I'm an imperfect action taker. I'm going to take one thing or two things from what I learned today, and I'm going to figure out how to apply them in my life to make kind of some shifts or some changes, or to see kind of the progress that I want to feel, whether that's in look and whether that's in feel, for example. So your first job is to let me know that you're in the comments. I want to know who's following along. And then your second job is to come back. Obviously, you can ask questions, but your second job is actually to come back into the comments and tell me what's the 1 to 2 things that you're going to walk away with, or you're going to start implementing as a result of listening to today's training. Because if you're just listening and you're not actually applying, it actually widens the gap between I know what to do, I just can't do it. And what we want to do is try to shorten the gap here. So we always want to try and implement whatever it is that we're learning or listening to. Hi, Laura, in the trainings here. Okay. So let me start by saying this. It is physically impossible not to lose weight if you're in a consistent calorie deficit. I do want to emphasize the word consistent, and I do want to also specify, okay, calorie deficit. But most women don't have a calorie problem. They have a consistency, or maybe it's not like a consistency, maybe it's like awareness problem or a sustainability problem. So before we talk numbers, we need to understand what a calorie actually is and why counting alone sometimes can fail you as well. Okay, so I'm going to get into what that looks like in a bit. So a quick story is I was working with a coaching client who was tracking her calories and couldn't understand why the scale wasn't moving. So she hit her calories 100% of the time, according to what she was recording, right? So 100% of the time, Monday to Friday. However, on the weekends, she was over by 500 to 800 calories. So she thought, since it was 2 days, not really 2 full days, but like a meal or two or extra snacks, for example, versus 5 days when she was like nailing it, that couldn't be ruining her progress, but it was. So when you look at her weekly averages, she was no longer in a calorie deficit, not to mention she was eating anything low cal or low fat, or resorting to low cal drinks or sugar free to avoid eating. She was using that kind of as like, I'm hungry, I don't know what to do, I want to be super good throughout the week, so I'm going to choose the things that are like lower calories, or calorie free or sugar free or whatever, to kind of bridge my way from one meal to the next because I was so hungry. But this wasn't allowing her to go to the bathroom. Sometimes she was struggling with, and she thought that was just kind of like the way it was. Like that was, she's always struggled with that, until we kind of changed her diet and of course looked at the pattern in her emotional eating too, because she was really stuck. So she was eating more on the weekends, but not every weekend. She was really restricting Monday to Friday, and it was kind of like this rinse repeat cycle. And maybe that is resonating with you. And if it is, you can let me, I don't know what's going on here. Let me know in the comments if that's kind of where you're at, because there is this misconception that, okay, if I nail it Monday to Friday during week, I'm super good, then I'm okay to have 2 days or 2 meals or extra snacks or whatever. But you have to think about it, well, if I'm scoring an A Monday to Friday, but then I score a D or an F on Saturday or Sunday, well, your average no longer is A. And then you have to, so then we have to think about, okay, well, at the same time, she was also consuming like low calorie, low fat, everything was like, because she understood, hey, I need to be in a calorie deficit, but then wasn't realizing the impact that that was having on our digestive system as well, and the impact that that has on weight. And then there was some emotional eating that was happening too. So let's now look at, okay, what a calorie actually is. So let's strip it right down, okay? A calorie is just a unit of measurement, or unit of energy. So it's no different than me saying centimeters or meters or miles or kilometers. It's A calorie is a unit of energy. You can't see it, you can't touch it. It's simply how we measure energy, both the energy in your food and the energy your body uses to keep you alive. So every time your heart beats, your lungs expand, your brain thinks, you're using calories. Now, here's where people get tripped up. We've attached so much emotion to the word, but a calorie isn't good or bad. It's just data, right? And what we do with it, that's what matters. So think of calories, again, like I said, like a kilometer. A kilometer is a kilometer, no matter what. You can walk it in the dead of winter, you can run it in the summer heat, or you can crawl in the rain, but the distance doesn't change. The same thing with calories, whether it comes from an organic smoothie, or whether it comes from a fast food burger, whether it comes from the healthy meals you cook at home or the restaurant meals or the takeout. It's still energy your body has to use or has to store, right? And clean doesn't mean calorie free. So a lot of the times when I'm having first time conversations with women, I don't get it. I eat really healthy. I don't eat out. We don't do takeout. I cook everything from scratch. I barely snack. But that doesn't mean that it's calorie free. So if you're eating all the healthy things like avocado toast or maybe smoothies or protein balls, but your calories are still higher than what your body burns, you won't lose weight. That doesn't make those foods bad. It just means the math still matters, right? So here's the problem I see all the time. People focus on how much on hitting so much on hitting the numbers that they forget to look at what those calories are actually made of. And this matters particularly if you're in perimenopause or menopause, because it matters for hormone balance, it matters for digestion, and it matters for energy and satiety. So calories are kind of like your roadmap. They tell you where you are, but how you fill them, that's what decides how you feel. And that's where macros come up. So what are macros? Macros are like the protein, the fiber, the carbs, the fats, and the veggies. So this equals balanced eating, which plays a huge role in your energy, your digestion, your metabolism, and your hormone balance. So you got calories are a unit of measurement, much like a kilometer is a kilometer. It's a kilometer no matter if you run, walk, swim, whatever. That looks like, sorry, or drive it. But then what makes up those calories is what matters, particularly for hormones, digestion, energy, satiety, and metabolism. What do I mean by making it up? Is the macros. Macros being how much protein, how many carbs, how much fat, and how much fiber or veggies that you're taking in your diet. That's going to make the biggest difference in terms of your energy, digestion, metabolism, and hormones. So if you're a woman listening to this and you're like, but I track my calories all the time and I'm not losing weight, hopefully something here has already hit home for you as well. And maybe the next step is also, well, how do I want those calories to be made up? Because we all know, like, the Subway guy lost weight just eating Subways, and we also know, I can't remember the guy who did the McDonald's diet, and we also know Warren Buffett drinks Coke every single day, right? Well, not to say that he's in a calorie deficit, but we have all these examples of all these people, but that doesn't mean that that necessarily works for you, works for, your digestion, your metabolism, your hormones, or even for you to kind of feel good, right? So the deficit, so this is what you need, right? And so let's talk about why it works and like kind of why people mess it up. So the truth is, every single diet you've ever heard of works the same way. So even if you're looking at, let's say, keto, you're looking at fasting. I don't know if anybody does paleo, low carb, low fat. Even if you're like cutting out carbs, cutting out junk, cutting out snacking, they all work because they create a calorie deficit. Meaning you're burning more energy than you're taking in. That's it. It's not magic, it's math, right? So the first, before I go into the problem with that, is that most women be like, well, when I cut out carbs, I lose weight. Are you losing fat, or are you using water weight from the carbs, right? Or are you losing fat because you're just cutting out a lot of the food that you've been eating in excess, and therefore it's created a calorie deficit. It's the same thing with keto. It's the same thing with fasting. So there are many roads that lead to Rome. It's choosing the one that not only services you now, it's what services you in your forever life. It doesn't work for you if you're like, well, it worked for a short period of time and now it doesn't work. Then it never worked. You had a short-term solution. But here's where most people screw it up. They go too hard too fast. So let's say they drop their calories by 500, sometimes 1,000 or more. And sure, the scale moves fast at first, but so does your energy. Your energy kind of takes, your mood is like up and down, your hormones and your metabolism too. Then what happens? You crash, then you binge or you overeat and you feel like you fell off, right? And then you end up back where you started, maybe heavier, definitely more frustrated. So you have this cycles of like, I'm doing really good, I'm doing really good. And then it's like, oh, energy tanks, mood tanks, life happens, hormones downregulate, metabolism and all that kind of stuff happens. And then you start overeating because you're like, hunger is up, you're like, you're not feeling good, you're feeling like you fell off or whatever. And then it goes back up. And then all of a sudden you're not in that calorie deficit anymore. And then the snowball kind of continues, right? So instead of slashing your calories, start smaller. So a 200 to 500 calorie reduction from your baseline is plenty. Obviously, you're not going to know how to do that unless you know what your baseline is. That's often as simple as like one less spoonful of peanut butter or skipping the nightly glass of wine or just like adjusting like your portions slightly. So it's not about eating as little as possible. It's just about finding the lowest sustainable intake that still gets you, well, actually, it just makes you feel like your best human self, right? So basically, it's like you need the calorie deficit. We already talked about what that means, right? How you make up that calorie deficit will determine how you feel as well. And so that's important too. So then when you can try fasting, keto, paleo, but they all work the same. They all work not but because it's paleo, not because it's keto. They all work for weight loss because they solicit some sort of calorie deficit. That's why they work. If you are on keto and you're not losing weight, then it's probably because you're not in a calorie deficit. So there's that, right? So we need to understand there are many roads to Rome. It's choosing the one that you can live with forever. Most are not choosing the thing that you can live with forever until you die. They're just choosing the one for the season of life that you're in. So then from there, the other thing that women screw up is that they just cut their calories back too much because they're like, I just want it now, I want it bad. But then what happens is that then starts to mess around with your energy, your mood, your hormones, and your metabolism. And then all those things kind of light up red, and then it makes it harder to sustain. And then you have life competing with that and your emotional self competing with that too. And so it just makes it harder for you to sustain. So therefore, then it's like you kind of like, I fell off the wagon and then you got to start all over. Because remember, I started the hour by saying by being in a consistent calorie deficit, that's not a consistent calorie deficit. So then I gave you an option of like, okay, we'll start slashing by 200 to 500, stay there for a little bit so the alarm bells don't sound red, right? And then you can make another adjustment and then another adjustment until you are where you need. And then you need to figure out, okay, how do I do this whole maintenance thing? And by the way, maintenance is a goal. If you've always been in losing weight mode and you've never been in maintenance mode, maintenance is a goal, an important goal at that. I would often argue that it's even more important than weight loss. Okay, so then I talked about, okay, well, you can't do the 200 to 500 calorie deficit unless you know what your baseline is. So how do you do that? So you pick your realistic goal. So if you have a lot to lose, start with your kind of first milestone goal, not the final number. So if you're like, I need to lose 60 pounds, well, maybe your first milestone goal is 20, and then it's 40, and then it's 60, for example. So you take your first milestone goal, and then you multiply that by 10, and then you multiply that by 12. So let me give you an example of this, okay? So your goal weight is 150 pounds. You're going to times that by 10. When you times that by 10, you get 1,500. What does that 1,500 represent? It represents the amount of calories, your baseline calories. But then if I take the number and I say 150 times 12, right? Now I get 1,800. What does that represent? It represents 1,800 calories. So now you have a range between 1,500 calories and 1,800 calories, and you use that as your starting point, not your finish line, right? Then watch what happens. You track your hunger, your energy, your sleep, and the scale for at least 3 to 4 weeks before changing anything. Now, again, the word consistent has to come up. You have to be super, super consistent to be within that calorie range, right? And it's often better than a range versus a target, specifically for people who struggle with hitting the target or feel really discouraged or bogged down if they can't make the target. It's way better to have a range. Because here's this thing, the number means nothing if you can't be consistent. You don't need to nail it every single day, but you do need to hit your averages within the range over time. So then we have to look at, okay, well, why not all calories are created equal? Why do I just, why is it that I just need to track calories? Because you're saying, hey, a calorie deficit is how I get weight loss. I need that. But then you're also saying, okay, but how I make up those calories, right? It's like if I need to get to $1, I can make up $1 using all nickels and dimes, or I can use get to $1 by using quarters, for example, right? And so so then there's many different ways to get to the dollar, but what's going to be the most efficient way to get to the dollar, right? And so that's your macros, your protein, your carbs, your fats, and then veggies isn't a macronutrient, but I do like to track fiber because fiber is also connected to all kinds of different health outcomes, including digestion, which we're going to talk about in a bit. So one, we understand, we got to talk about the old calories in, calories out story and why it doesn't necessarily, it's an important story because we understand we need a calorie deficit, right? But we also need to understand the whole story. Yes, it matters, but your body isn't a calculator. It's kind of like chemistry, right? So how your body processes the calories depends on a few key things. It depends on your gut, your metabolism, and the quality of your food. Okay, so let's talk about gut health. So if your gut can't absorb nutrients properly or it's constantly like inflamed or bloated, your calorie math won't add up. You can eat all the right foods, hit your targets perfectly, but if your digestion is off, your body isn't using what you give it and your hormones will kind of feel out of balance with that. That's why when I coach clients, we always start with a 10-day gut reboot as well, and some of them also work with me in conjunction with a naturopath to kind of get that working better first, right? And you can say, but I've always had problems going to the bathroom. That's not where we want to live, particularly in perimenopause and menopause, because when we're not going to the bathroom regularly or consistently, mostly every day, then we're getting excess hormones built up in our body as well, or excess toxins, right? Um, so 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 it's yeah, so a good example is like, let's say, celiac disease. When someone with celiac eats gluten, it causes inflammation in their small intestine, and that inflammation damages the surface area and blocks like the your ability to like properly absorb those nutrients. So once they stop eating the gluten and the gut has to heal as well, they start absorbing nutrients again. And sometimes what ends up happening is the reverse of what you want. You end up gaining weight, not because you're eating more, because your body is finally using what you're eating, right? So that's why improving kind of gut health doesn't just help digestion. It'll also help with your energy. It'll also help with your hormones, like I said, but it'll also help with your cravings, which is the big one that most people don't understand. Most people don't understand the connection between your gut health and weight loss, but also how if you have a sluggish digestive system, it impacts your energy this way. If you have a sluggish, digestive system, then it impacts your hormones this way. And then in terms of cravings, it makes actually your cravings a lot higher too. And even it affects how you burn and store calories too. So then you got your metabolism and your set point. So your metabolism is like your body's engine. It's always running, adjusting, and trying to keep you alive. So it operates around what's called a set point, basically the weight range your body likes to hover again. If you're the kind of person who over years has tracked your weight and your measurements, you'll see your body's always trying to get back to that. So when you're kind of like off diet, for example, your body tries to go to that set point. What happens when you've dieted on and off for a really long time is the set point can get higher. So for example, is like my set point likes to always return, well, it's lower now, but for the longest time, like since 2012 when I was tracking, my set point likes to return to 128 all of the time. It's now 126. So when I'm not necessarily being as diligent or consistent, my body's always returning back to that 126 all the time. But if I diet for a really long time, for example, like I did the photo shoots, I did the stage, my set point actually went a little bit higher. It went to 132. And so that's where your body starts to struggle. So when you've had a lot of like on and off things, that's where it gets really tricky, is because the set point starts to change with constant diets as well. So so again, it operates around what's called your set point, the weight range your body likes to hover around. It doesn't matter what your mind wants or what you want, it's what your body feels the safest with. That's what your body's always trying to get back to. So this is controlled by your hypothalamus. Think of it like your body's thermostat, and it tries to keep things like super stable, right? And that's why when you diet aggressively, your body kind of starts to fight back. Hunger rises, energy drops, metabolism slows down. It's not broken. It's just being adaptive because it's trying to get you back to that stable position. So if you spent years dieting, losing and gaining weight, your body has learned to survive on less. You burn fewer calories, you move less, even without realizing it. That's what most people don't realize. And your set point, starts to shift like I kind of described. And that's also why plateaus happen. Your body's adjusting to the new normal. So when the scale stalls, it doesn't mean your body is failing you. It really truly means that it's protecting you. And that's where women really struggle, is because they get so discouraged, but they need to lean into patience, consistency, and strength training to kind of reset that thermostat over time. And then there's food quality. So here's what most people get wrong about them, that they treat all calories like they're the same, but they're not. Sure, 500 calories of chicken, rice, and vegetables equals 500 calories of chips and wine on paper, but your body reacts very differently. So it goes back to what I said, like a calorie is a calorie, it's a unit of measurement, it never changes. Same with like a kilometer is a kilometer, whether you walk or run, for example, it's always a kilometer. Well, 500 calories of chicken and rice and veggies could be the same. You could get the same amount of wine and chips for 500 calories. It's still 500 calories no matter what. Same thing if the 100 calories was coming from natural peanut butter or Kraft or Skippy, or 100 calories was coming from what's another common one? Oh, it's coming from honey, natural sugar versus white table sugar. It's still 100 calories. It's on paper, but your body reacts very differently depending on where you're getting that food from. So protein and fiber take more energy to digest. Your metabolism literally burns more calories breaking them down. Did you hear that? Protein and fiber take more energy. So if they take more energy to digest, you think about it. Okay, in order for you to lose weight, you need a calorie deficit. Sure, one way to do that is through exercise, but think about what I just said. Protein and fiber take more energy to digest. Therefore, there's a calorie thing that's happening there. It needs to burn a little bit more calories, right, in order for you to digest your protein and your fiber, right? So that's literally like it burns more calories breaking them down. Those foods also keep you fuller for longer, balance your blood sugar, and reduce your cravings. So if I'm feeling fuller for longer, then I'm less snacky. If I'm balancing my sugar cravings, then I have less cravings for, carbohydrates, or less of like this roller coaster, like a lot of you explain, like the 2 p.m. or the 3 p.m. kind of crash, and it reduces your cravings. Meanwhile, high sugar, high fat processed food, they do spike your blood sugar, crash your energy, and make you hungry. The opposite of what you want, right? So when someone says a calorie is a calorie, they're not wrong. They're just missing like the nuance or the context, right? Because what makes up those calories decides everything: your hunger, your cravings, your energy, your inflammation, and your progress. So if your meals are mostly whole, high protein, high fiber foods, your body just runs better, right? It just runs better. It is mostly, if it's mostly processed, sugar or heavy foods, you'll feel like you're dragging even if you're hitting your calorie target. So calories matter, yes, but the quality decides how those calories work. Do they work for you or do they work against you, right? So the missing piece that makes breaking a plateau or a progress plateau is, the truth is calorie counting works, but only when your body is in a place to respond to it. Like we talked about, it has to be able, like your digestion has to be working in order for do it. Are you consistent? What's making up your calories? Tracking alone doesn't fix fatigue, cravings, bloating, or plateaus. It's just one piece of the puzzle. The rest, that's what makes the difference between progress that sticks and progress that disappears. So let's break it down, okay? I'm going to give you 7 reasons why calorie tracking isn't working and what to do instead. Before I start, this is a great opportunity for you to get out your pen and paper and mark these down, and then create a checklist from it. Which ones do I need to focus on? Which ones am I overcomplicating or over focusing on? Which ones do I need to let go? It's a great way to troubleshoot if you're not working with a coach or not interested or ready to work with a coach. It's a great way to troubleshoot just why isn't calorie tracking working for you beyond what I already just covered. Okay, so number one on your list should be you don't absorb all your calories, like we already talked about. If your gut is inflamed, sluggish, or lacking good bacteria, your body isn't breaking down or using what you eat properly. So, what does do instead? Obviously, is we want to focus on gut healing foods, lean proteins. Cooked veggies are easier to digest than raw veggies as well. Fermented foods as well, because you get some of those prebiotics too. Fiber, and you want water. You always want water and fiber together. And then we want to slow down what we eat because that optimizes digestion. Number two on your paper, certain foods regulate hormones and satiety better than others. So, like I said, protein and fiber keeps you full. It helps. So you want to kind of build your meals around protein first, then veggies, then fill in the gaps with your carbs and your fats. You want to eat in that order too sometimes. Not to say that you have to, but it matters for blood sugar and fullness. So if I'm feeling really full because I ate my protein and my veggies first, then I'm less likely to eat a majority of the carbs and fats that tend to have the majority of calories associated with them. Number three on your paper is stress, mindset, and sleep sabotages your progress. It's often an afterthought, right? It's often like, I gotta work out, I gotta do this high intensity, I gotta lift. But you're not understanding that when you do all of those things, when your stress baseline is already high for whatever reason, this is also a stressor on your body. Yes, you need to move your body regularly. Yes, those things are good for you. But when your stress baseline is high, we need to look at the frequency or the type of what we're doing here, particularly when you're in perimenopause or menopause. So, high stress raises cortisol. Now, cortisol is not the reason why you're gaining weight. Why do I say that? Because it's like what we talked about. You need a calorie deficit, right? You need a calorie deficit is number one. Number two is how you make up that calorie deficit. Remember, is it nickels and dimes or quarters? So protein, carbs, fats, and fiber. That's going to help you in terms of the way you feel or the way you want to feel. Cortisol can make it harder for you to make better decisions, right? If you're feeling super stressed, even most women actually don't even know that they're carrying around a high baseline of stress. That makes it just harder to make good decisions. So, high cortisol just increases your cravings. It can disrupt your digestion. For some, it's like really loose stools, like diarrhea, frequent visits. But for other people, like the client I just talked to, earlier this week, it's they now don't go for 2 or 3 or 4 days as well, and that disrupts hormone regulation, and it just all makes fat loss harder. So what to do instead is we do want to prioritize recovery. I'm speaking mostly to the women who are super consistent and super diligent. You do want to make sure that you have some recovery in there. We want to walk, particularly outside, like vitamin D, fresh air, mind reset. We want to breathe, not shallow breathing. We want some deep, good breathing as well, regulate that nervous system. For some women, it does mean journaling as well as an outlet for their stress. And we want to stop overcommitting, saying yes to everything. You can't burn fat in a body that thinks it's in danger. Why do I say that? Is because it goes back to what I said. The body's main job is to keep you stable and to keep you safe. If it feels like it's in danger all the time, then it's constantly struggling against it or competing against your goals of I want weight loss. It's always going to prioritize this. Number four, your diet history, hormones, and muscle mass all matter. So if you spent years yo-yo dieting or avoiding strength training, your metabolism has adapted. You burn fewer calories because your body's learned to just survive on less. So what to do instead? We want to lift weights, eat enough protein, build lean muscle so your body burns more calories at rest. Let's go back. If you want weight loss, you need a calorie deficit. A calorie deficit can be created through, yes, how you eat, right? So what you eat, how many calories you take in, right? Or what your body needs. And then it could be created by the kinds of foods that you eat. So remember, we said protein and fiber take a little bit longer for the body to digest. But now we're looking at a calorie deficit through movement. So just moving your body more often, regardless of the movement as well, provided that it's matching the season of your stress at that time. But also now we're looking at, okay, but if I have more lean body mass, then I burn more calories at rest. So now we're starting to see it's not just calories in and calories out in terms of food. We're starting to see all of these different ways that I can go about this calorie deficit, right? So number five is your exercise type, your frequency and intensity aren't optimized. That should be going on your paper. Okay. Too much cardio or random workouts can stress your body without building muscle or improving your metabolism. Too much cardio, particularly perimenopause, when you're in steady state cardio for too long, or it's like the ratio of steady state to, like, let's say high intensity or weights is off, it's greater. That can cause more stress on your body. So there's that. But then it's also maybe you're doing too much high intensity. We do want high intensity, don't get me wrong, but it's like looking at that rate. The poison is always in the dose. It's not one thing specific. We like to name it as one thing specific, but it's in the dose of what we're eating. An example I'll just give you that I used recently was energy drinks, right? So I mean, if you drink an energy drink once a month, maybe twice a month, is that going to be the reason why, things are not working for you? No. But if you drank an energy drink and every single day, or you drink 3 or 4 or 5 every single day, that's where the poison is. It's in the dose. It's not in the what you do infrequently. So too much cardio, random workouts, or stress in your body, that's not going to help you improve your metabolism or build your muscle. So instead, like, we want to focus on strength training 3 to 4 times a week. It's not just about sweating. It's not just about putting in the time. We've talked about progressive overload many times in this group or in these trainings. We want a mix of walking and recovery, and we want to train smarter, not harder, right? Then we got to look at number 6, which is non-exercise activity. So your steps, your movement, that the one is that often overlooked. You can crush a 45-minute workout and still sit for 10 hours a day. Movement outside the gym makes up a huger part of your daily calorie burn. So you're saying, like, hey, I'm doing this calorie deficit thing. I'm lifting weights. I'm getting to the gym or whatever. But it's like 45 minutes in comparison to how many hours you sleep. So you're laying down, and how many hours, like, I'm sitting in this chair in front of the computer. So you want to consider movement outside of the gym. That's going to make up a bigger part of your calorie burn as well. So you want to just move throughout the day. Some of us don't have the luxury of, like, getting up and going for an hour walk on our lunch, but we do have the option of, doing some more stretch breaks, walking to the water cooler, walking to the car, walking up the flight of stairs or whatever, or just doing micro mini breaks. Walking after meals also helps with digestion too, particularly if you're struggling with going to the bathroom. And then, some of us have more the ability to use a standing desk as well. So that's an opportunity too. And then digestion speed affects metabolism and fullness. So some foods digest slowly, keeping you fuller longer. You know which foods those are. Others burn through faster, leaving you hungry again. That's why when you go eat a pasta meal with garlic bread and a Caesar salad, why you're like so full, but then can feel so hungry after. So you want to pair protein and fats together. And obviously, if you can add fiber in there, that'd be great. You want to avoid skipping meals or grazing all day, because both of those can mess up your digestion and your hunger signals as well. So the hidden mistakes that throw you off, even if your numbers look perfect on paper, here's where things usually go sideways. I think you're also going to get the hint from what I've already talked about, is like, that's why it's not adding up. But other ones that often go like untracked or unnoticed is bites, licks, and treats. For example, when you are making your kids lunch, when you're coming home and cooking dinner, when you're cleaning up after dinner, they all add up as well. I hate to say that one because it makes me feel really like anal or really like specific, but for some, it's like it's adding up to quite a bit. A splash of cream or a spoonful of sugar in your coffee, or maybe it's like taking that knife and always having that knife out for your peanut butter. And especially if that all happens multiple times per day. Cooking oils and sauces, one drizzle, it's easy to add up to 100 calories really fast. Weekend eating, so your Friday night, I'm free, I have that pizza night, or the Sunday, really big brunch, for example. That can, again, it's like you're scoring an A all week, and then all of a sudden you're scoring a D or something like that. Your average is no longer an A. Alcohol, it's not just the drinks, but how it lowers the inhibition that comes with it. You snack more, you track less, and you sleep tanks. And let me tell you, can you lose weight and drink alcohol? Yes, if you're in a calorie deficit. However, the priority of the body is, even though you want it, is not weight loss. The priority of the body is to clear out toxins as well. Then you have mindless eating, nibbling while you're scrolling, because you can't just do one thing at a time. You have to do multiple things. Snacking while making your kids' lunches, like I said. Finishing off your partner's plate or your kid's plate as well, where it's like watching that show and eating the snack. under tracking, so you're just eyeballing portions instead of measuring your weight. And sometimes starting with eyeballing is where we want to start, but the next progression would be actually measuring or weighing them out. And then what you think is 1 tablespoon of peanut butter is probably two. And not counting condiments like ketchup, high in sugar, high in carbohydrates, mayo, fats, dressing, dips, small doses, right? But they make a bigger difference. And then eating out too often as well. You can do your best guesstimate when you're eating out, but if you're doing it often, it can equate to 30 to 40% higher in calories. So you don't have to choose, but you don't have to, sorry, obsess, but you do have to be aware, because the small untracked habits are often the very reason why your progress stalls. So counting calories is a tool, but it's not the whole toolbox. You can't out-track poor sleep, stress, and a broken metabolism. I don't want to say broken, but maybe it's down-regulated because of the reasons that I've already said. So when you start addressing kind of these pieces, and your calorie track finally works kind of the way it's supposed to. So before we wrap up, let's end with some questions to get you kind of reflecting and troubleshooting. This is, again, a really great way for you to get your paper out and to kind of start writing these things out. Are you cutting too much too fast, or not enough to create the real deficit? Cutting too much too fast is like, it's not going to be sustainable for you as well. I get that you want it. I get that you feel better when you do and you feel more in control. It's also a mindset thing too. But it's a crash and burn approach. Or are you not doing enough? Because I have a couple of clients who are just focusing on eating healthy. They're not tracking, but we've had to have very frank conversations about, yes, you're eating a lot healthier than you were, but it doesn't mean you're in a calorie deficit. Are you assuming healthy is a deficit like we just talked about? Are you skipping meals assuming that means a deficit? Are you assuming cutting out calories equals carbohydrates equals a deficit? So skipping meals doesn't mean that you're not making it up somewhere else, and that you're still, you could say, I skip breakfast, I barely eat lunch, but it doesn't mean that the back end of your day you're not making it up elsewhere. And then on even just like on week, or just cutting out carbs, it's like, well, if you're cutting out carbs but you're eating all of these other things in excess, it doesn't mean that you're in a deficit. Are you tracking everything, or are you missing the oils, the sauces, the bites, the sips, the sneaks in every day, or the weekends, the coffee add-ins, the taste testing? Is that all kind of sabotaging your progress? Could your digestion or inflammation be slowing down how your body uses what you are eating as well? Are you paying attention to your hunger, energy, and cravings, or just chasing a calorie goal that doesn't fit your body right now? Might have worked before, but right now with the season of your life, it's just not working for you in the same way. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how consistent were you last week? What about the last 30 days, 90 days, 6 months, this year? Those are really great questions to reflect on top of everything that we've covered today. We're wrapping up this training. And again, as I said at the top of the hour, I hope that you will come into the comments and share, what's your big takeaway? What's the thing you learned, or what's the thing that you're going to do as a result of what you learned today? That's how you're going to move the needle forward. These trainings are really just designed to help you make connections. So what I really want to do with the training is take bigger topics, and then help you kind of break them down. And then how do you kind of take imperfect action on them? How do you make it simple enough that doesn't dismiss the real progress that you want to see and feel? So this is your permission slip to become an imperfect action taker. Take what you've learned today, turn it into action. So while these trainings, I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, provide valuable steps, and I hope that you'll share them with other women inside this community, and it shifts the conversations you're having with women who are struggling with losing weight. This is just one way I support women like you. I do one-to-one custom coaching. That's where the real transformation happens, because it's kind of like it's not a one-piece approach. It's like we're looking at simplifying nutrition, we're looking at exercise, we're looking at stress, we're looking at sleep habits, we're looking at mindset as well, and we're all looking at it and how it supports not only just weight loss, but your digestion, your hormones, and your energy as well. And then it's set within the framework. The framework gives you the actual plan or the roadmap to get you there. It gives you the structure, the tools, and the high accountability that's actually going to make it stick. So I'm happy to send along the stories of other women that have openly shared what their experience was like with coaching. Happy to send that your way. But if you just want to start and have a conversation about your goals or where you're stuck, just pop into my DMs and I'm happy to have that conversation with you. Okay, so I'll know I did a good job today if you head to the comments and let me know what your imperfect action is as a result of today. Maybe it's not an action, maybe it's like a, that clicked for me. Now I get it. That is still an action step two. Move from just an information hoarder to an actually imperfect, consistent action taker. I'm Coach Cindy signing off.